We could begin the meeting. I assume there are public speakers, although I do not have a list. Oh, okay. I know who everybody is, so that's why I said it. Thank you, Joe. Go ahead, Warren.
I guess I'm first.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm really glad I got notification that the Long Island Railroad staff had met with Drew Galloway based on my recommendation. That's very good. I would recommend that possibly an overview of what was mentioned be presented at the upcoming joint meeting of Metro North and the Long Island Railroad, so perhaps staff could present a report on that, because I think it's very important. And let me explain why. If you look at the information I gave you about the performance of New Jersey Transit, you'll see how bad the on-time performance is of the North Jersey coastline and the Northeast Corridor. It's a disaster. Today there was 15-minute delays coming in from Secaucus. And I've got to feel that in some way that has got to negatively affect the Long Island Railroad to boot. And therefore, it's important for us to see what can be done to improve the Northeast Corridor, because it is very, very problematic, and it's got to affect not only New Jersey Transit, but the Long Island Railroad. Also, as I said before, I did meet with Ronnie Hakem, the new Executive Director of New Jersey Transit, and one of the things I did recommend was to get together with you, President Williams, and discuss issues, and she says absolutely she will. So that could be a very good thing for you both to get together and go over a lot of the critical issues. And a final item is if you look on the agenda from New Jersey Transit's board meeting, they are going ahead with their upgrade and implementation of PTC. So it would be interesting to see how that's going to be involved with the Long Island Railroad and Amtrak, and also for the Metro North people for the west of Hudson. Because as it is, it's an important safety issue. I know you're working on it, and it would be good to see how all the railroads work together on this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Warren. Murray?
I gotta keep pushing this out because I want my grandchildren to see me. Helena, it's nice to be able to thank you for having a book that has logic to it, correctly numbered. Can you teach Metro North to do it? They can't do it. And Mitch, it's a pleasure to stand here and the looseness of the meeting, you're not uptight, and it's appreciated.
Not yet.
What?
Not yet.
Thank you.
Thank you. Approval of the minutes on February 24th. Are there any changes or suggestions? If not, motion to approve. Second, all in favor? Okay. I believe there are no changes to the work plan, right? No changes to the work plan. Okay. We'll go into President's report. Helena?
Good morning. This morning I'm really delighted to start with a report about a locomotive engineer, Joseph Moscato. He was driving to his Center Reach home during the early morning hours of Saturday, March 8th. And after working his shift, when he had spotted a car that had apparently struck a tree and was starting to catch fire off Route 347 near Town Line Road in Hopog. The driver of the car was a 20-year-old woman. She had apparently hit the tree after losing control of the auto while glancing at her car's GPS. Joe Moscato, 64 years old, retrieved a heavy-duty carbon dioxide fire extinguisher from his car, and as the fire crept closer to the trapped young woman, he used the extinguisher to fend off the flames as he and another Good Samaritan pulled the victim from the burning car just before flames swept through the passenger compartment. His actions bought the 30 seconds needed to free the victim. The young woman, I'm pleased to report, is expected to recover. Joe Moscato, a locomotive engineer for the Long Island Railroad for 14 years, said he was not thinking about his own safety as he helped rescue the young woman. His training as a volunteer fireman and an EMT for the village of Babylon for the last 30 years near his Center Reach home also, of course, kicked in. His heroic actions exemplify the best traditions of service at the Long Island Railroad, both to the railroad and to the communities we serve. Please join me this morning in honoring Joe Moscato for his actions on March 8th. Joe, step forward. Okay, Rich, there you go. Thank you so much. You really exemplify what's wonderful about the Long Island Railroad tradition.
Thank you.
Let me just go like this. Go. Down. Good.
You want to smile?
Okay. Just Pat, 1 second. Mike, why don't you come up? Yeah. And Vinny, you want to join us? Yeah. Yep. Where's Ryan? Yep.
Picture from behind,
Oh,
from the
is
side.
that a grandchild?
That's my grandson.
Oh, well, let's get this hero up here.
Okay,
Yeah.
you're fine, you're fine.
Come
Just
on.
take a picture out of it.
Come on up and join. Look at this. How nice. Isn't that great?
Member of the union, right, Benny?
You want me to hold him up? Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Have him hold the, would he be able to hold it?
That's great. Oh, this must be Mom. Come on up here. Great.
She works here too.
Oh, very nice.
Hold that, you got that? Very good, nice job,
Great.
nice job.
Got it?
Okay.
Thanks.
Very nice. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Dominic, again, just absolutely wonderful. Let me just say hi. How you doing? All right, good. Say congrats to your granddad. Look at what he's got. Yeah, that's great.
He saw all the videos. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I am now going to just go back to our regular agenda. Long Island Railroad has been reviewing the FRA's deep dive report on Metro North that was issued on March 14th. I'd like to take this opportunity to assure members of the committee and our own customers that Long Island Railroad will apply any applicable lessons raised in this report to our operation in an ongoing effort to improve our safety culture. While I believe that culture is a robust one, we believe there's a long journey to ensuring the best record of safety that we can achieve. And we are on that journey at Long Island Railroad, and we're going to continue to pursue it. We will, of course, fully cooperate with any FRA examination of our safety practices at the Long Island Railroad, and we welcome their insights as to how to improve our safety procedures. I came on this job in 2007, and everyone heard me repeat over and over again, safety, security, and reliability are the top priorities of the Long Island Railroad. Safety is always our #1 priority, and we will continue to instill that. There is an update in the book on specific safety measures that we have advanced since December 1st. Since the derailment on Metro North's service. We are moving forward to procure and install alerters on the diesel equipment, conducting speed compliance testing of engineers, working with the FRA to coordinate a close call reporting system, and we've completed the speed controls on critical curves. The Long Island Railroad's next safety stand down, where managers and staff meet in every department to review the latest safety concerns, is scheduled for March 27th. I'm also pleased to note that the Long Island Railroad recently cooperated with a APTA safety audit. We were found to be in compliance with accepted industry safety practices, and the auditors rated our program excellent and called its implementation by management commendable. So I was I'm certainly pleased to share that with Lori Ebenhausen, who is heading up our safety and training function at the Long Island Railroad. I'd also like to address a recent media report on statistics related to Long Island Railroad reporting to the FRA. As many of you may have noticed in that media report, we had a very high number of what's known as train incidents. When I became president in June 2007, we were at that time being audited by the FRA, and the audit had a number of critical issues in terms of Long Island Railroad underreporting. We put a corrective action in place, a plan in place in response to that audit, and we began embracing robust reporting. I want to assure you that many of those reports are reports that are filed even when the customer hasn't given their name, doesn't want medical assistance, but we capture it as an incident. And much of this did grow out of the gap remediation plan that the Long Island Railroad put in place. There was clear underreporting of gap incidents, and our goal was to correct that. I'm going to turn now to ridership. February 2014 ridership increased across the board among regular commuters and off-peak riders. This despite or maybe consistent with challenging weather where people left their cars at home and boarded our trains. Total ridership went up 1.4% in February, and commutation ridership increased 1.6%, non-commutation increased 1.3%. The month of February started with ridership gains from the Super Bowl activities in New York City. On February 1st, we had that's a Saturday with almost double our normal ridership. And of course, we hope this trend continues. And that completes our President's report.
Thank you, Helena. Any questions for Helena? Chuck, go ahead.
I would like to repeat two questions I asked at Metro North. Is there anything inherently inconsistent between on-time performance and safety? Or isn't it a fact that the two can and should be balanced so that people have a safe and on-time ride?
I absolutely agree with the concept you're saying. The actual word balanced, I would probably just reserve a little caution on. There's never a balance, always safety first. On-time performance is always secondary to safety. But yes, both can be achieved. We want to have a safe operation, a secure operation. We're focused also on customer security, and then reliability. Reliability is on-time performance. It's generated by good track conditions, excellent equipment and the shape of that equipment, and making sure that our transportation operation is functioning under the rules that we have. So we would agree that, safety certainly can be achieved, and should be and must be.
My point in making this is not to denigrate one iota the importance of safety, but to underscore 2 points. One, that people ride the train rather than the car because they want to get there in one piece, but they also want to get there on time. And by that, the second point being that on time doesn't mean just adding 3, 4, 5, 10 minutes to the schedule for the purpose of doing it. And my purpose in making that comment was to strongly urge you in advance to avoid that, just for the sake of avoiding.
No, we absolutely agree. And of course, every system is different. Long Island Railroad has, 10 branches that converge through Jamaica. We don't have the opportunity to add time to schedules. They're very set because we have scheduled connections at Jamaica. Port Washington is on a very strict clock because it has a single track operation at the end. So we absolutely agree with you. We want to achieve a safe and secure as well as reliable ride.
What I'm seeking to achieve is to avoid, for the Metro North Railroad, the designation of moping metro as compared with the weary Erie, and to retain Dapper Dan rather than Dawdling Dan for Long Island Railroad. Let me, if I may, take the second point, and I want to make it as I made it at Metro North. The statistics in many respects in the Long Island Railroad book, which I might add we received on Friday and Saturday, together with an accompanying capital projects book, just too late for anyone to devote any time to real thorough reading of it. As Mr. Ballin made the point, Commissioner Ballin made the point earlier today, you got to get these stuff if you expect us to provide the oversight that we are required to provide under Perkins-Brodsky. The only way we're going to do it is if we get it in time to read it. The data, in many respects, is inconsistent with the data that appears in the corporate governance book for the Corporate Governance Committee that will meet later this afternoon, when I assume my friends from the Fourth Estate will be having a different repast than attending the meeting. But the meeting, the data in the Corporate Governance book in at least three respects clearly is quite different. I give you as an example the comments on page 83 of this report concerning Long Island Railroad's hiring of females, and the government report on page 30 of 93, the same thing with respect to employee injuries, which are different numbers. I acknowledge that the governance report is a year-over-year report, but the commentary reflects the fact that the data is different. Not your fault, not the fault of the Long Island Railroad. It just seems to me we need to get some of these statistics carefully under control.
I was alerted before the meeting that had come up, and I will work with Metro
It's
North.
in every operating agency.
We will work on data reconciliation. I absolutely agree that we need to understand what's being reported in what format for one committee versus another. And I know the agency heads will be committed to that, and we'll work on it. Regarding the book issuance timetable, I absolutely agree. You know, this is voluminous material. Can't be looked at on a Friday afternoon with a Monday morning meeting schedule. We will work with the MTA to ensure that there's a lead time that makes more sense.
Madam President, may I ask you one specific question that I find important? If you will look at page 41 and at the second footnote, which reads, the Port Washington branch showed the largest percentage increase in ridership, which is attributed to the restoration of weekend half-hourly service. And the point I'm seeking to make is, do you have a sense that if the public, the riding public, is given increased service, it will respond favorably by providing increased ridership, increased dollars, and an increased recognition of the attributes of the Long Island Railroad?
You want to answer that one, or you want me to?
I better defer to my chairman. I'm smart enough to.
Listen.
Let me be clear, I am praising you for that.
Thank you, thank
The
you.
leading question.
Very,
And we know how to say yes.
there is no question that when that happens, the riding public responds. You can see it there. You can see it on the half-hourly service, which was added on weekends on Ronkonkoma after a number of years, and those trains are packed because people want reliable service, and they want to know not only when the first train is, they want to know how long they're going to have to wait for the next one if they missed the first one. And if you do it on a half-hourly basis or something like that, especially off-peak, you will get people who will ride. And that has been my goal, and the goal of many of the other people around this table. Hopefully in July, when the service enhancement issue comes back, unlike last month, we will be able to do more of that, especially on West Hempstead and some of the other places. And I don't think it's just an issue for Long Island. It's an issue on all of our agencies. The more service you provide, the more ridership you're going to get in that regard. So,
Mitch, that was a softball.
I understand that, but I'm answering it softly. Okay, Helena, Ari, have done?
Yes.
Go ahead, Ari.
He also mentioned about more people riding there for more revenue. I want to comment that the Port Washington branch actually has a higher cost recovery ratio
Yes.
than the subway on average. And I noticed that when we did the cuts. That's
Because of the way it's set up.
because of the high ridership.
Yes,
The
yes.
extremely high rider. It's a very efficient operation.
Yes.
Can I
And
ask,
will even be more efficient when the capital project there is finished.
can I
We have
ask
two
one
projects
more
to implement.
question in the
Yes, go
same
ahead.
vein? Will you please take a look at page 60? What stood out for me was the fact that the Ronkonkoma line, which has only 6 eastbound trains, has the largest number of passengers, while there are 9 trains for Babylon, for example. And my question is, why the disparity?
Why the disparity in the number of trains?
Yeah.
You can answer that. 6 and 9.
Right, right.
That's his issue.
That is the issue of the single track operation. Because everything is going in one direction on the single track, we can't get trains threaded back. So the trains, of course, are very full on the AAM. That's a problem that we are looking to solve with the double track strategy. We will be moving forward with the first segment under phase 1 from Ronkonkoma to Central Islip, and we will look to fund the second phase, Central Islip to Farmingdale, in the next capital program. This is a long overdue capacity expansion.
And the question that I would have by way of follow-up, is it impossible, impractical, or just out of this world to either add more cars to the existing trains or to have an additional train with less of headway?
We will be happy to provide you some additional information on it, but scheduling has looked at this backward and forward. We probably, I don't know for sure, but we may be at capacity with 12 cars. Yeah, just, Mike, if you would add that,
Generally, the cable trains are maxed out at 12-car trains.
How about a second or an additional train with less headway?
and of course, that is the issue of trying to thread the train facing opposing train traffic in the peak direction. We try very hard to get what we can in, but we have to primarily service the peak direction.
Would you do me a kindness, and I think you'd be doing not me a kindness, but the people on that line, by taking yet another look at the possibility of perhaps putting another train on so that the headway would be reduced and so that these folks can get somewhat better service?
Well, when we start and finish second track, we're not putting one additional train on, we're putting many additional trains on in that context.
Mitch,
We've had that conversation on a number of occasions. I have no problem looking at it again.
We will certainly look at it.
It's a
I'm
physical issue.
Mitch, I'm an impatient fellow.
And you're not the only one.
Let me just, if I make a comment, there's an hour and a half, I think an hour and a half, maybe a 2-hour gap on the main line for reverse commute. And you can't, in other words, you have to drive. You cannot go eastbound in the morning on the main line. About an hour and a half.
Past a certain spot.
No, well, the main line, so everything's
Right.
in. There's
No,
an
I
hour and a half
understand.
gap,
Yes.
and it's
Yes.
maddening. But you know,
I would be remiss to say, of course, that problem would be solved by a third track. But right now, my goal is to get a second track done from Ronkonkoma to Farmingdale.
How long do you think, at the best of all possible world, how many years is that before it's completed?
3.
Well, if we get the
3.
funding in a time.
3. 3.
Oh,
She knows. 3.
we do need the funding for the second segment in the 2015 to 2019 program, but we have the opportunity to just really move this construction.
Yep.
Suffolk County's been terrific in terms of laydown space, permits. Everything has really come together to move this project.
Okay. Michael. Capital construction.
Good morning. I just would like to report on the progress that we've made on the east side access. The south structures, the CM005 that is progressing right now. They are on schedule, and the work is moving forward. At the 55th Street vent facility, the blasting has been completed. We're now doing waterproofing and additional work. So from that perspective, there is less impact on the community, because on the street actually, because we're putting a facility basically in the street bed. The fit out, the early work for the southern end of the concourse is again proceeding with some rescheduling of the substantial completion due to some redesign work for the SCADA system. As we move into Queens, the work at the substation in Queens, there are 4 substations that have been completed, and they are now ready for the follow-up work on the systems contract that we are about to award to start. And this is the B10, Roosevelt Island, Vernon Boulevard, 12th Street, and they are ready to start be outfitted. The cutover, and this is something that we have discussed extensively, that is very important to us, so that will enable some project work construction to continue. We need to de-energize an existing 12 kV duct. The testing is starting now at the end of the month, and we expect to do the cutover in April. We expect we anticipate an award on 3 major contracts. The northern structures, the CM006, the 179, and as well as the CM084, to be awarded before the end of the month, before the March 31st. And at this point, we requested last time around to procure through an RFP the finishes for the Grand Central finishes, and we expect to put out the RFP in April with an award in October, November. We also, at this point, the 50th Street vent plant is about to be completed, so that's another piece in the puzzle that we'll put in place. Going forward, we expect to advertise the traction power procurement, as well as the fact that we have actually completed an industry outreach for of the caverns, and we expect to come out with an RFP by October timeframe, with an award sometime in July of 2015, with an NTP, the early NTP. The work it will not start in earnest, but they will have to do a lot of ordering of precast and other things, so we expect to get them going at that particular point. The other thing that is worth mentioning is the fact that we have a contract to construct the west bypass, and we have provided the contractor a full move ahead that we were holding back due to an agreement that we needed to have with Amtrak that was completed, and now the contractor is full steam ahead moving on that project. That's about what I have to report at this point.
Any questions on MTA Capital Construction? If not, okay. Chief?
Good morning. Police report begins on page 28. We had 6 incidents compared to 15 last year during the month of February, a 60% reduction. I think some of that was weather related. The 2 robberies, one of those will actually be reclassified. It was a false report. We had video in the area. When we looked at the video, no crime had been committed. And I'd just like to thank Helena for the liquid ban for the Montauk Parade. We had very few incidents yesterday. It was a success. So thank you. If there's any questions.
Always helps.
I have to thank MTA Police for an outstanding job out in Montauk. Just really went well.
Okay. Information items.
Okay, we have 4 information items. I'm going to take all 4 together and then questions. First, we have the annual ridership report. We've already touched on this. 2013 was a growth year for us. We experienced growth in both commutation and non-commutation markets. Several steps did help boost weekend and leisure travel, including an enhanced service plan for Barclays Center, our adjustments on the summer Montauk schedule with the departure point of the Cannonball move from Hunters Point to Penn Station. And of course, we've already touched this morning on the half-hourly weekend service on the Port Washington branch. So while weekday ridership increased more than weekend ridership, we're always very pleased to see the growth in our weekend and our leisure travel. The report contains both ticket revenue and customer count information. Next in the information section, we have the annual Strategic Investments and Planning Study report. We try to give you a little bit of an overview of what we've accomplished, what we see coming in terms of strategic investments with highlights on capital projects. As you will note in the report, PTC and trying to accelerate the completion of PTC is a very important strategy that we're pursuing. The railroad strategy calls for a unified approach of installing positive train control along with the upgrade of current dark territory, automatic block signal territory, controlled manual block, all trying to bring these areas up to the standard of automatic speed control and cab signaling. Our first signalization of dark territory, that project is beyond to Montauk, and that's progressing. I also note the Sandy, Superstorm Sandy recovery and resiliency projects. We're very focused on, of course, Long Beach, East River tunnels, the work Island City Yard, and the West Side Yard for protection against flooding. We note that, of course, we awarded the M9 rail cars, 92 cars, to Kawasaki Rail Company. I also highlighted for you in the report the Hicksville Station, Long Island Railroad's second busiest branch station. We have 3 capital projects covering Hicksville, $106 million in investments as we try to modernize the station and the track and signal systems. We mentioned the double track project. As you note, that one was awarded in December 2013. And I'm pleased to, of course, highlight the Long Island Railroad Train Time app, which is on iPhone and Android smartphones, have been launched with this website. We're very excited about the number of customers that are using it. Platform replacements are underway at Massapequa and Wantagh Station, and new elevators were completed at Queens Village. We are on a normal replacement, schedule for signals, track, power, and communications. Next, we have an information item on our track program, and this appears on page 81. As is Long Island Railroad's practice, we provide you with a staff summary on our track work program when it results in schedule adjustments. There are many more track efforts that are ongoing, but they don't always result in a schedule change. These have schedule impacts, and they're highlighted here for you. As you can see, we're moving forward on the concrete tie replacement program on the Hempstead branch. And while we're doing that, we also piggyback the switch surfacing work that needs to be done. And then finally, Long Island Railroad's diversity report. It starts on page 83. I would note for you in new hires, we continue to make great progress in diversifying our workforce. Of the new hires, 16% were female and 41.7% were minority. If you have any questions on these items, we'd be happy to answer them.
Chuck?
Let me take you through them seriatim, if I may. You referred to Hicksville. There is a truly excellent and informative blog called Long Island Railroad Today, which points out that Belmore and Hicksville are the two stations that have a platform that is capable of holding 14 cars, and that your proposed renovation there would reduce that platform to 12 cars. Why?
That is correct. We are cutting, the proposal is to cut back the Hicksville platform, aid us in using the additional track that is available at Hicksville, and not allow trains to overhang in the back and block a very important area known as Divide, where the main line separates for the Huntington branch and the Farmingdale branch. The main reason why we don't want to maintain a 14-car platform is that we don't operate 14-car trains.
But there's always a future, and nothing succeeds like a successor, as we have seen in other instances. And all I'm trying here to do is, why destroy the possibility that in the future you can meet rising demand with a 14-track? I just don't understand why you would do that. 14 cars.
Right. No, the issue, of course, is that none of our western terminals would accommodate 14 cars. We agree with your point about getting to a standard that maximizes car length. And our goal, and you will see this emerge in the next capital program, is to get to uniform 12-car lengths. Right now, Long Island Railroad is plagued with an operation that says to customers, you know, the first 2 cars will not platform at New Hyde Park. The last 2 cars will not platform at, give me one, Vinny, Maryland Avenue. And it's the same line, and customers are always scurrying to make sure they're in the correct car. Lots of customers actually board, and then they ask the train crew, am I in the first 2 cars?
Do you gain anything by shortening that platform?
Yes, it's very important to the operation in Hicksville as we add that pull-up track, and we maximize the use of the island. Hicksville is a wonderful station with an island. We have the ability to send trains through that station, which is our goal for Eastside Access, using this track that's on the north siding that currently does not pull into the station. So it's existing track, but it falls short of the station.
Could you, at your convenience, let me have, and members of this committee have, whatever information you have to show that there's a real plus in doing it, leaving it as it is, again, a
Certainly.
useful purpose? Is a comment. I note that you are now working to expand the Wyandotte experiment in terms of transportation development to Ronkonkoma. Do you have a timetable that people can look to see that that is moving forward?
We don't actually have a timetable. We leave that to the local community. That is, their goal to bring a transit-oriented development to Ronkonkoma. We're working very closely with the town of the town of Brookhaven and the town of Islip. But we are leaving, that major decision-making to them.
You are, however, working with them on.
Right.
The assumption, Chuck, is Wyandanch, as you know, is under construction at the moment. The assumption is that the plan for Ronkonkoma will be approved by the local municipality in June
Oh, good.
of this year. That is the plan.
There are some who would like to see that concept extended to the borough of the Bronx and certain parts in the East Bronx.
But that is the plan at the moment.
Right.
My third question is on the mentoring program, page 72. I noticed that you have approximately $5 million worth of projects for mentoring. Can that not be expanded? It's a relatively low amount for mentoring activity.
I'll review that and get back to you on that. We have been working very hard to ensure that we are developing mentoring contracts and trying to ensure that that number grows. Let me get back to you with a more thorough report.
My last question in that same vein is your diversity report. You have a listing by columns of female, black, Hispanic, and other minorities in terms of hiring. And my question is there an overlap between the female column and the minority hiring?
Yes, there's certainly.
And does that impact at all as the Governance Committee has been told, quote, the percentage of female representation continues to fall below the estimated percentage of women available for work in the recruitment area. That's what they say on page 30 of the governance report. And my question to you is that impacted in any way by this kind of overlap area?
I'm going to review the report, the governance report. I need to understand how they're capturing that data. Michael Fife, who's here and has done a great job. Michael, there we are back there. We'll take a look at it together. He works hard to make sure that we are capturing the numbers correctly and that we're sharing our goals constantly with HR.
And the last point is the new hires. I noticed that in the area of technicians and officials and administrators, there have been zero, apparently, technicians and official administrators among the black community. Is there a reason for that?
I'm not sure what page you're reading.
I am reading from page 87.
87, page 87. So for example, technicians, we are showing
0% for women and for women in officials and administrators and technicians.
right, but we hired 3 and 1 was Hispanic and 1 was Asian, if I'm reading it correctly.
I think that's
So
probably true.
it's it can be difficult when the numbers are so low, 3
Okay.
positions.
Thank you.
Ira, you had a question?
Yes, on the ridership data, it says in the narrative, it says ticket sales data is used as well as counts. I wonder if that's ticket sales or ticket collections. I'm just concerned about.
It's marked sales.
Yeah, it's it's sales.
Oh.
The report actually includes the second half of the report is ticket counts, which is visual counting that we do periodically
Well,
during the
passenger
year.
counts.
Passenger counts.
Right, actual
the first
people.
part, actual people.
Yeah.
The first part is ticket sales.
Sales, okay. Because someone may not use the ticket. I don't know how many that is, and it'd be good to see. And then there's ticket collections, where collections in the city terminal zone can often be challenging during peak period. You get a lot of people who they just can't. I mean, from Jamaica to Woodside, you cannot get everyone's ticket. It's impossible. So I mean, I see it. So I'm just concerned about the accuracy within that area and some other areas. And I don't know which is ticket. Which part of this data is ticket?
If I could just
Collections of
help,
ticket,
one
yeah.
of the issues that I think you're getting at is what's called ticket validation. So there's no report here about
Right.
ticket validation. We have, sales, which is, actual revenue, counts, which counts the people.
Right.
And we try hard to reconcile the
Okay.
two in terms of counts against sales to see, are there places
Yeah.
where ticket validation needs to be
No, I'm not
more
looking
aggressive?
I'm not looking at the ticket validation issue. No, that's not.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure these numbers reflect what's really happening. That's all. I just wanted to be sure that that's what's going on. The other on the investment end of it, I noticed there's a Long Island City Yard remediation, Sandy remediation. I think some of it has to do with putting up some walls around the yard.
Yes.
I'm concerned because I know there's been a lot of community protests and aggravation over idling diesel trains. I know the railroad has come up with a very good plan to not have them run during the day, especially when the weather's warmer. It's just putting up walls can have a worsening effect or it can have an improvement as far as sound and echo, and I just wish that would be taken into consideration, maybe some discussion with the community before we go ahead and have to hear after you put up the walls that it's even worse than it was before.
We do think that the walls are not high enough to result in the sound being bounced back. These are basically to protect against the flood elevation, but we'll look at that issue. We try to be very sensitive to that community, although I have to frequently mention that there has been a train yard there for 100 years.
I do too, and I do remind them that actually when the train yard was originally there, it was steam locomotives, which if we had them now, it would be much worse. And it was an industrial area, yes. I'm as well as Commissioner Myrtle, I'm concerned about shortening of platforms. I know we had, I think either it was at a meeting or maybe there was an email exchange regarding Jamaica renovation and accommodating 14-car trains, which we're not going to do, and whether that was a possibility or should be. And this, goes the other way. And maybe it's good and it's all fine, but I think we should definitely take a look at that.
But that's a perfect example of a major investment that we will propose in the next capital program, which will be to make the platforms at Jamaica accommodate 12 cars. Right now, we do not have uniform ability to locate equipment that is,
But could you
uniformly.
reconfigure Jamaica to accommodate 14-car trains?
No, we're trying desperately to get to 12.
You don't
Let me
But
just
if you're
pause
okay.
to remind everybody what it means. The issue is the signal system. When you lengthen the platform, you have to move the signal system back. We don't have enough real estate in Jamaica. It's going to be tight for me to get the 12-car platforms, but we'll do it. But 14 will be...
You just don't have the space between
Right.
where the track leads in on both sides of the station to actually do and the switch. Okay.
And to move the signal system appropriately.
It would have to be, okay, I understand.
Right.
That question also answers the Hicksville question.
Right, it does, and of course the beauty of what we are doing in Jamaica, and I know you've heard about it in CPOC, we will be building, an additional platform for the opening of Eastside Access, the Brooklyn Shuttle operation, but use of that platform will be available while we reconfigure to 12-car platforms in Jamaica.
Okay? All right. Good. Action item, page 90.
Okay, we have one action item in this month's book, and it is a staff summary about our new Hamptons Reserve ticket policy. And as you know, last summer, and I've already mentioned it, we moved the departure of the Cannonball to Penn Station from Hunters Point. That has proved to be enormously successful. The Hamptons Reserve service sold out much earlier than usual, early in July. However, what we discovered at the end of the season was that some customers were reserving seats for the season and then not using them. And then at the end of the season, they asked for refunds at the end of the season. This new policy seeks to address that issue by opening up more seats on a train that is very popular. We propose combining the standard rail charges with the reserved seat charge into a single ticket. The price of the new combined ticket will be, consistent with the previously approved board prices, and certain changes are proposed to the validity date and the refund policy. These changes will discourage misuse of reserve seating, resulting in seats traveling empty and customers later seeking refunds. That's what we want to avoid. So customers will be asked to cancel by noon on Thursday prior to their date of travel. If they fail to cancel, that cancellation, of course, allows us to resell the ticket. If they, the seat. If they fail to cancel, then they would not be eligible for the refund. The Hamptons Reserve revenue grew by 190% last year, and we, of course, want to continue that opportunity. With seat cancellation, we will have that opportunity to really serve more customers, and we ask for your approval.
This item. Motion second? All in favor? Aye. Okay. Procurements, known for Long Island Railroad?
We have none, but I did want to take one moment just to note that Metro North did present
Yes, I said that this
three.
morning, yes.
Perfect. So
Yep.
they were approved,
Yep.
and just for the benefit of this committee, they did cover two requests to issue RFPs. One on video camera recording equipment for inward and outward bound cameras, and the second for a train fault detector system, which covers the wheel impact load detector as well as a detection of overheated train bearings.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I have a question on that one, on the train fault detector system. It says it's going to be installed on the main line west of Belrose, and the way freight traffic comes into the system, it comes in before that. In other words, I assume that most of our freight traffic that comes into Fresh Pond travels past Jamaica.
Yes, that's
And
correct.
and it wouldn't be, so this wouldn't catch it until after it's east of Jamaica.
Well, the benefit is that Metro North will be using a wheel fault detection system as well. Most of the car loads on freight that come through the system actually are the same car loads that leave Fresh Pond. So we're going to have two checkpoints. The benefit is that this not only covers freight, but it also covers Long Island Railroad cars. So we think it's a good strategic location.
My concern is stuff will come in
Right.
from upstate, and it would have never been checked, and will pay. I mean, Jamaica's a critical point. If something should happen, and even on the what they call it, the Montauk Division, I think it is the lower, which we don't run passenger service on, but we do run it through Queens. We wouldn't want
Right.
something to happen on our railroad in neighborhoods where we'd have an impact. But if all this equipment checked? Will all this equipment be checked by a Metro North detection system, or only some?
I would say 95%. We're still looking at about 5% that, sporadically comes on the Cross Harbor float into Brooklyn.
Oh, okay.
But we
And hopefully,
we're
if
looking
it
at that.
hopefully if it floats across, it will have been picked up beforehand.
Right.
If it doesn't get all the way across, we know there's a problem.
Well, but it's hot box and things
Right.
like that. I mean, is this stuff in New Jersey? Did they check it in New Jersey? Does anybody know?
I'll check on that.
Yeah,
I
because it would be
think
good to know
there
if
is
there's a check
fault
spot
detection.
nearby. It's
Right.
fine.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, capital construction procurements.
David,
Oh, Chuck, you had a question on which
on
one?
capital construction.
Oh, let him explain first and then go. Go ahead, David.
Good morning. Capital construction procurements begin on page 99. There are 3 procurement items for consideration this month. There are no non-competitive items, and there are 3 competitive items. The first item is requesting approval to utilize the request for proposal method to solicit a contract for the reconstruction of the integrated electronic security system in the East River tunnels. The second and third items are requesting approval to award modifications to the East Side Access General Engineering Consultant contract. The first is for repackaging of a future contract in the amount of $1,097,952. The other modifications decrease the budget allocated for construction phase services in the amount of $18,890,316. These items are submitted for your consideration and vote.
Now, Chuck, you have a question? Go ahead.
Dr. Harani Chanu, there have from time to time been comments about increasing costs over the years, and I'd like to focus on the Parsons Brinkerhoff one on page 100. According to the last paragraph on page 100, some 5 years before you came to the construction area, before, that contract was let for $20 million. And we're now looking at something on the order of $155 million in the aggregate. And my question to you, sir, is it possible that some of these ancient contracts, when they were bid out long before you were on the job, on a low-ball basis that is now coming to haunt us years later?
Let's start in a different way. There was not a bid, but an RFP process in which consultants were selected based on their qualifications. PB was selected for both design and construction support services. There are two different contracts. At the time that was awarded, there was I would call it a holding place in terms of dollars, because it sounds like 20 million is a lot. But if you start looking at the percentage, and I'm talking about now the normal percentages that you calculate when you go to construction support services, that in many ways could approach 2.5% of the construction value. And if we look at that, our number to date is pretty much what it's supposed to be. Due to the complexity of the project, when you go into construction support services during construction, there are many more questions that normally would be on a project that is pretty much straightforward. In this particular case, I believe that the number right now, it is about 155 million for construction support services. That is pretty much on line with what we are actually see as construction cost, that is about $8 billion.
My point in this being that some of these ancient contracts that were let at a period of time were let at a number that was either a placeholder or unrealistic at the time. And when the numbers that are used today to discuss increased costs and the like are not properly factoring in the fact that these contracts were laid decades ago, that what today, in hindsight, would be viewed as lowball.
I'm going to look at it a bit different, in the sense that when these contracts were negotiated, and this was way back, there was an optimistic view as to how long it's going to take to build and how much it's going to cost. So if you look at that, potentially that would have been closer to reality than actually the numbers that we're seeing today. But when we're looking at the numbers today vis-a-vis construction costs, we're well within the parameters of design and construction support services that are normal for the industry. So although the numbers that started were low, we're now pretty much where we ought to be. And clearly, every time that takes longer, these contracts become more expensive. But to say that I think we had $120 million for design contract in 2000. I think it was 2000. David, was 2002 or 2004? I don't remember exactly. I think it was 140 million included construction support. But design was just 120, my recollection is.
Correct.
And what was the year? What year was that?
2004.
2004. At the time, we did not have yet even a final design. There are lots of things that were unknown. So I would say to you that 140 was a target number that was well exceeded over time.
I'm simply trying to make sure that people understand the correct start.
Thank you. Well,
Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Merdler raises an interesting, an intriguing point. Let me ask you, Michael, the example that he uses, is that, would you say, emblematic of all the issues that have brought us to a point of significant cost overrun?
I would say that that's correct. That the original estimates, when they were done.
Of these old contracts?
Yes, they're all contracts, but these old contracts continue to date.
If you add, yes, but if you added them all up,
Right.
they would add up to significant cost overruns we experience today?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
That's I think the question he was.
Yeah, the
he was
answer is
asking.
yes.
Exactly the point, as better articulated by the distinguished borough
And the only thing I would add to that everything in terms of the consultants vis-a-vis construction has kept the proportions. That means there is a certain percentage of the construction cost that is attributable to consultants, it being their program managers, construction manager, designers, and so forth. So that proportions have been kept.
And there is nothing else that has been out of the expected in terms of contracts let and what the bids come in at?
The question is obviously a little more complex. If I
Well,
have to answer
that's the flip side of that coin.
yes, that's the flip side of the coin. There are lots of stuff that happen, and particularly in the two specific events. One had to do with Harold, where in effect in 2007, I believe, the beginning of 2007, we put out a contract that was not really vetted and approved by Amtrak in order to push the work forward and make sure that we are going to stay in schedule. That turned out to be a problem because a lot of that work had to be redone, and we were working with, in effect, let's put it this way, the shovel was just behind the constructor's back, the consultant's back, that they had to redesign stuff. That created for us delays and cost increases, significant.
May I interrupt and just say, 2007, were you heading
No,
construction?
no, I was not.
Thank you.
He's pleased with that answer. I'm sure.
I just want to nail this down.
Yes.
So there is nothing else that has contributed to any cost overrun of significance.
No. There were extensive delays that were incurred in Manhattan as we're doing the as the contractors were digging the tunnels, and this were in effect at one point they were delayed, I would say, up to 4 years. We had to reshuffle the whole contract. We made an attempt that we were successful in actually cutting back to about 2 to 2.5 years of those delays. So the contractor was able to recover some, and this was through a settlement that we have negotiated in 2000, I believe, and 10-11. And these are again contributing factors that push the project forward, because if anything is to be said, since we have a single point of entry, and it was in Queens, by the fact that the contractor doing the work in the tunnels was delayed, it delayed everything else. It was a linear effect that immediately impacted the other contracts. And yes, that contributed.
I don't want to overstay my welcome from the chairman on these questions.
That's
We'll
okay.
deal with them another time. Thank you.
But I think we have discussed a number of them at CPOC, and I think there's another report coming up at CPOC that in relation to all of these also.
That's correct.
Right. So hopefully we'll answer all of them at that point also. Good. Okay. We need to vote before David has a heart attack over there that we didn't finish. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you all very much. Motion to adjourn. Oh, Jonathan, you have a question? I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'll just approach Helena and her staff. I have the same comments I had at the Metro North Committee
Okay.
in terms of presentation and content of the operating reports. I'm not going to repeat myself.
You had a couple of
Let's
questions
move
on
forward.
how they were displayed, which he will
I
talk
have
to
a
you
couple
about.
of suggestions on how
Right.
to maybe include some better
Right.
information.
Okay?
Thanks.
Okay, thank you all very much. See you next month.